the illumination of, continuing to personally develop as a person and understanding who you are. And to your point, right? Forgiving yourself, right? Like I had to forgive myself for that in order to move forward, right? Because like if I can't forgive myself, then how could I expect her to forgive me?
Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall, where we throw ideas, see what sticks, and nurture those that do. I'm your host, Armando, an actor, entrepreneur, and coach, giving you insights that light up your world. We're here to explore the realms of business, marketing, and life, serving up a shot of inspiration with every episode. Ready to make ideas stick and grow them into something great? Let's dive in.
What is up, everybody? Spaghetti on the Wall back with another one. Benny Fisher is in the house. Welcome to the show. How you doing today?
This is amazing, Armando. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this ever since you invited me on your podcast, and kind of been watching you from afar over the last few months since we met at the Visionary Summit back in March.
Yeah. When you meet someone with that same energy, it just, boy, it starts to vibrate higher and higher and higher. It's kind of crazy how that happens. So I was like, yeah, it was a no-brainer. Been watching you as well, and with all of the things that you're doing, visionary entrepreneur, keynote speaker, podcaster, and look. Let's get into it. Talk to me about how you got to where you are right now, and I've got questions about your thoughts on content marketing and the whole nine. So we'll just start with your background, how you got here.
Yeah. So, what do you want? The 2-minute version? Let's do the 2-minute version.
Yeah.
All right. 2-minute version. So, didn't really fit into any model in school. Teachers really didn't like me. Had ADHD. My mom didn't put me on medication. Thank God now. But that caused a lot of havoc for teachers, parents, my friends. Like there was just a lot of ups and downs, man. A lot of things I had to overcome and face that a lot of people would call trauma. But I've since healed from a lot of that stuff and figured out how to use ADHD as my superpower. Started selling cars when I was 18. Got fired from every dealership I ever worked for by like some like old cringy used car manager. So I thought I was worthless, even in the workplace. Ended up getting into the drug game in my late 20s. I was late to the drug game. Most of the people get into it like right out of high school. But yeah, in my late 20s, wasn't really any good at selling drugs either. I got robbed at gunpoint one time and got my car stolen from me downtown one time trying to buy some dope in the hood because my real connect, he didn't come through, and so I was driven, and so like I knew I had to go out and get it because like I didn't want to go back and get a real job anymore, and the people at the nightclubs, they needed what I had, and that was my first taste at like real entrepreneurship, but like I said, I wasn't really good at it. Was so bad I actually went bankrupt one time. Didn't pay my apartment bills either. I got evicted. I was homeless for 3 days. Too proud to like go and tell my mom I needed help. Ended up getting back on my feet. You would think that would be enough to end me selling drugs, but did not want to go back to the corporate world and try to like go be a salesman somewhere because I thought I was no good at it, and ended up getting raided by the FBI and got 2 felonies on my record when I was 29 years old. And so then I really thought my life was over because I was living in my sister's basement with nothing. I literally had zero. Living in my sister's basement. I was going through the court process. We weren't sure like if I was going to jail or not. I never had a record before. I was a pretty good kid. Luckily, I was spared from going to prison. I ended up, the felony stayed on my record, and I had a like house arrest for a couple months. I started getting back into church. Like I was always a good kid, always raised in church. Probably one of the things that maybe led me astray a little bit was like you grew up too strict, right? Some of you guys that are listening, if you ever grew up with like the strict Christian or Catholic faith, what that can be like, and can't tell a kid like me with all these ideas and wants to see the world, like you can't do that. It makes me want to go do it more. So luckily, I had an uncle who had been building a career in the roofing industry over in Pittsburgh. I was living in Ohio, and he said, "Hey, I just started my commercial roofing company." He had been working for guys for 20 years. He finally took his entrepreneurial leap and said, "I could use someone to help me with sales and marketing." And I'm like, "Hey, I'll do anything, man. Anything's better than working at this call." I was working at a call center, making $9 an hour, and living in my sister's basement. I'm like, you could have said just about anything, and I was going to take it, right? And I remember my mom going like, "What if he can't pay you?" Like, I'm like, "Mom, I'm making $9 an hour in a call center, living in Ashley's basement." I said, "I am not." I said, "Going to stay here for too long." And so I went over to Pittsburgh, didn't know a single person, worked for him for 5 years, selling roofs, learning like what it was like to be a small business owner and seeing kind of like how that vibe was. He was an old school contractor, great guy. But I would sell too much stuff, and he'd tell me I had to stop selling like in October because I couldn't get all the stuff done. And because he couldn't learn how to scale, he didn't want to scale. He didn't want to get bigger. He wanted to keep it small, keep it all. And I needed to do stuff. And so in 2013, I started helping small business owners in the Chamber of Commerce with their Facebook pages, and started helping them with some marketing and some social media, and kind of did that on the side. It was like a little night and weekend project. Ended up getting married, had a kid. 2015 came, and all of a sudden my uncle, he got mad at me for something. I was getting ready to go on vacation with my family. He wanted me to stay back and manage some job sites. Long story short, he sent me a text that forever changed my life and said, "I think you should go sell roofs for someone else." And I took that vacation for a week, went to the beach, and I came up with my company, the Big Fish Contracting Company. We call it Big Fish because, my last name's Fisher and I'm not a small guy. And people made fun of me, because we had a cartoon fish, back then, even though it wasn't that long ago, 9 years ago. Nobody was doing like marketing and like technology and using all that in home improvement business, especially in roofing. And so I kind of stood out, which I thought was a good thing, and ended up being a good thing. Ended up building that brand. Learned a lot of things along the way, like about business and life. And I'd never hired people before. I'd never managed people before. I was terrible at it. A lot of ups and downs. I ended up starting to do drugs again. I was drug free for like 5 or 6 years. And in like 2016, I started doing some drugs. So I was trying to escape the pain of trying to be a family man and a businessman, and trying to keep it all together. And with all the success and money that I was having, because I was really successful early with cash, and ended up overdosing on fentanyl in 2017. And that was another wake up moment for me, and another aha that, first of all, I don't know why God kept letting me go through this stuff and why he just didn't take me out, but I realized there had to be a bigger purpose for my life, and needed to figure out how, but I still didn't know how, right? Like I knew there had to be something else, and I had to do something different. And for the next 3 years, I tried to figure out some stuff. And I did learn a little bit more things about business, because I always thought it was the business's fault, not my fault. And then in 2020, when COVID happened, we all had that, that 2x4 moment where like we all had to pause. We always had to sit in our house, look around. Do we like our life? Do we not like our life? And we can either decide whether we're going to keep doing what we're doing or change. And I made a big drastic change again. Ended up getting divorced. Wanted to go like down the personal development track and really invest in myself. Ended up meeting a girl who's now my wife, Brittany. She was into yoga, mental health, health, breath work, all that woo-woo stuff. Started really getting with that. I lost 80 pounds. I was like almost 400 pounds, super unhealthy. Lost like 80, 90 pounds when over that next year. And then I also read a book that year that will forever change my life called Rocket Fuel. And then I just started implementing EOS, right? And I started going hard with that. And 6 months later, when I think I'm back on top of the world, I got a call that my brother got shot and killed in the back of the head in a drug deal gone bad. And my whole life just like, I felt like just crushed me again, right? I had this leadership team I was building. I was, in a new relationship, and things were going good. And then that happened, and I really just had to start to like scratch my head and like, why is all this stuff happening to me? Like, what am I doing? And I realized, because I was gone, I went back to Ohio for 3 weeks to spend with my family. And when I came back, I realized like my business didn't need me anymore. Like they literally, they knew obviously they weren't going to bug me, they weren't going to call me, but they didn't call me. I didn't have to worry about payroll. I had people there doing everything. And Gino wrote another book, Gino Wickman. He wrote another book called The EOS Life. Do what you love with people that you love, make a lot of money doing it, have time for other passions, make a huge impact. And I'm like, man, like, how can I do that? I said, like, I'm not even really, first, my company doesn't even really need me. What could I do? So I started a podcast, because I was a big Gary Vee fan. And I'd met Gary Vee a couple of times and just invested into V Friends. And he was always say, hey, start a podcast. And so I started a podcast called the Big Fish Cares Podcast. And And part of the reason I started it was, first of all, I needed something to do that, visionaries need something else to do rather than just, keep working in their company. So I figured that would keep me from starting another business. That would give it a little passion project. But really why I started it is because I was super curious about other people's stories, right? Because I knew I had a story burning inside of me and I just didn't know how to let it out. And I was also very ashamed and very embarrassed by my story. But I also knew that like that story could change the world if I could just figure out how to get it out. So I figured if I interviewed enough people, I could learn about their stories and then maybe get the confidence to muster up. And then I got an opportunity to speak at a small roofing conference, and I did that. And then a guy in the roofing industry, Dmitry Lipinski, invited me to be on his podcast. He's got like over 100,000 subscribers. And I went and just aired that same story that I just shared with you on a 2.5-hour podcast and just spilled my guts. And it was the most healing experience I've ever felt in my life, when I just knew that it was all out and I didn't have to worry about anybody liking me or not liking me, and I got nothing but accolades and nothing but like warm sentiments from people messaging me and saying, wow, your story really moved me. And here I was ashamed about that story and I kept it inside my whole life, and I never talked to anybody about all the bad things that I would be doing and not being able to figure out, and always just talking about like the good stuff that happened in my life. And that's when I realized that more people needed to hear this story. And so that's when I started really getting into helping other entrepreneurs, right? Because they're the ones that can change the world. And if I can help change that entrepreneur's heart, help them transform from the old way of doing things to the new way, and help like hold their hand through that process. Like I wish somebody would have held my hand, but God held my hand. But like I want to hold someone's hand through that process, because they can make a huge difference on their team's lives, their employees, their families, their communities. And as they grow, so will, good people going in the world. And so that's what I've been doing, man. Speaking, podcasting, coaching, and spending time with my family.
That's amazing, man. Um, do you believe that, as more of a philosophical, deeper question, but is everything, in your opinion, is everything preordained, predestined, or or is freedom of choice really a thing?
Both.
Yeah.
Yep. I believe
What?
our creator knows what's going to happen, but I still think that you have the power to make it happen. But he also knows if you didn't do it. Like, for instance, if you tell me to say the word four right now, I just said four. But if I really wanted to say five, like it just comes out. Like he already knew what I want. Like he knows, but I still have the choice. Like he knows what choice you're going to make, but that doesn't matter. You still have the complete power to change your life. Um, one of the best things that I've ever done was when I started doing therapy, and I started looking at my past and all the different things that happened to me and all the people that I was mad at and all the people that I felt like, gave me a fair, not a fair shake at life. I looked at it, like, like this, I have this little cup right here. Let's just say this. I got this Perrier, right? And on the front, we have the front label, and on the side we have all the stuff, right? Well, there's this instance that happens in life. It's like a cup. You see it from one side, someone else sees it from the other side, someone else sees it from the other side, and there's someone else on the back side that sees it. And what I did is I would go back to these past instances of my life, and I would just be completely not attached to the instance anymore. And I would just look at it. I would remember what I felt and what I saw, but then I would look above, almost like if I was looking down at a ball, and I would try to get on the other side and say, all right, Ben, well, you felt like that wronged you then, but because of that, and a lot of times it was my drive, right? A lot of times, like I needed to prove that I could do it. I needed to prove that I wasn't a screw up, right? And so that led me to do a lot of really good things too, right? And so I then had gratitude for those moments in my past. And then when I was able to do that, I was able to forgive not only the other people, but I was able to forgive myself and really start to love a little bit more. And then you wash that away, and it becomes you're at peace with it. You never have to worry about it again. And like your goggles, the goggles of your life, I feel like get muddied up, every time, like every time that there's a little bit of bad stuff or trauma or something like happens, there's a little bit of mud that splatters on your glasses. Well, we got to get the wipers. And every time that we do the work, the healing work, the wiper comes down and cleans a little bit of, it doesn't clean it all right away, but eventually you'll be able to start to see, right? And once you can start to see, like, see, most people have depression because they look back at their life and it was just if they see bad, they're going to be depressed because it's so muddy, right? But once they can start to see, and you look back and be like, oh, that's not so bad. Because when you have muddy glasses, when you go to look forward, you have a muddy future. And when you have a muddy future, that leads to anxiety, uncertainty, fear. Your ego gets in the way, right? It's hard. It's hard to become present because you're literally always in the past or you're in the future. None of it looks good because your glasses are muddy. So when you wipe away the dirt from your glasses, and when you look forward into the future, it looks bright. It looks shiny. You can see a path, right? And you can get excited about that. And then I read a book one time, Be Your Future Self Now by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And he really explains it a lot better than I do about the science behind this. And I was kind of already experiencing because I was doing it. It's like I could vision myself out into the future, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And if you start acting like that person that you want to become now, you actually just get there. Like you don't actually have to wait. It's a crazy concept, but you got to do the work to clear it up so then that way you have a bright future, right? And so that's what I've been on a mission to do over the last 3 or 4 years. That's what I'm doing, and I'm trying to show people what's possible just through just living my life, and living a life by design. And that's not for everybody. There's still a bunch of guys that care more about money. There's more people that care about freedom. I just want to live a life by design. I want to be able to be super creative. I want to be able to help other people. I don't want to be tied down too much to my business. I don't want to be tied down too much to my family. I don't want to be tied down too much to my friends, too tied down to habits or I just want to be free. I just want to be free. And I believe that sense of freedom attracts certain vibrational humans. And then you're able to collaborate, and then you're able to even make a bigger impact at a much bigger scale on the earth. And so that's why I'm so passionate, because I think that's why I love working on entrepreneurs, because I know they're the change makers. They're the change makers. There's driven people. There's your Navy SEALs, your athletes. Then there's half of them are turning into entrepreneurs, but the entrepreneurs are the ones that are really changing the world, right? LeBron can change the world because he's got a platform, right? And he can speak into it, but he's he can create some stuff, and he's an anomaly when it comes to athletes and Navy SEALs. But if you can create a business around that, and you can employ humans, and you can motivate them, and you can inspire them, and you're attracting good people, and you're offering good products and services to the world, it's only going to get better. And right, so that's why I love working with entrepreneurs, because I do believe that's where the most effective change is going to happen.
Yeah. Talk to me about. I love this ADD concept, and I'm super grateful. My mom also didn't put me on any Ritalin back in the day either, because I was a handful, and I also lived in shame a lot. And when I read the book Driven, it was such a validating book, because I was like, finally, a book that understands an outlier, a black sheep, a visionary, somebody that doesn't belong in what everybody, the status quo. So talk to me about the ADD superpower that you have, and how do you, because you're idea guy, 30, I'm sure you have 30 ideas a second. How are you managing your ideas? Where are you putting them? How are you organizing it? How are you prioritizing it?
Man, I could go for an hour on this, and it's a tough concept. So let me slow my brain down because my brain's going fast. So there's two things I believe that we have to remember. So there's our actions and our emotions, and our environment of us going fast or slow, right? And so for most of us to have ADD, we're predestined. If we're not taught, we just go, right? Because we don't know why we're going. We just go. We're like a ball of energy that just goes, right? And we leave there's usually a lot of good things that happen, but there could also be a path of destruction, right? It's like the Tasmanian devil is a good analogy, right? You can just see the smoke behind him. And so with that, when all the ideas come and all the things come, because they're going to come no matter what, whether you're going fast or slow, those ideas are coming. So that's the second thing, right? So there's your movement through Earth, but then there's the movement in your brain, right? And that's coming too, right? And so when those two things collide and they start to both go fast, it just gets exponentially worse. It's like hitting a golf ball 1 millimeter to the left and you shank it, 300 yards into the wrong hole. And so this is where you need to be able to improve your stillness, right? And I'm a big fan of trying to be still a little bit more, try to become more present, try to slow down. Going slower is smoother, going smoother is faster. But it's a hard concept. When I was younger, I would have told you that you were crazy, because that doesn't make sense because it felt safe to go fast. But I will say now that I've become more present and I have delegated a lot of things that I don't have to do anymore. And all I have to do is really just be. And when I can just be, then I can, I think, what is it? Do. So a lot of people do. So then they can have, then they think they're going to go be. And I think if we can be first, then we can have, then it'll encourage us to do. And so it's a hard place to get to, and you need systems. And that's why I'm a big fan of like the EOS framework, having an integrator around you, even at home, having your spouse, like, hopefully if you marry someone on the opposite end of the spectrum as you are, you'll have some stability, right? And if not, you're really just going to have to hire some people that really help you, right? With the housework and with all the business of a house, you have the business of the business. And when you can kind of get all that operating, where like you're not the one actually doing it all, you're kind of just supporting it all, and you're creating, then you can slow down, you can take some more time, you can get really clear like on like what you're focused on and what your mission is. So then that way everything idea that pops into my head, like I no longer have the idea that like, oh, I want to go start start selling sunglasses, or I don't want to go start, because I'm so clear on my vision for my life that it's like those ideas actually don't even matriculate anymore. And so the only ideas that come up are actually all aligned with my core focus and my vision for my life because I've done the work. And so it's even smoother. Now I still get like crazy, but I put them on a list. And depending on who that idea is going to be the best for, the 3 or 4 main people in my life that I rely on to like vet these things to, when I was younger, I would have told them they were crazy. But because they know the vision of my life, like if you're going to go be a doctor and you're going to do heart surgery, and all of a sudden, like those guys, somebody just says, "Oh, let's go start a restaurant tomorrow." Oh wait, dude, that's not even coming because they're so clear on what they're good at and what they want to do for the rest of their life. They're not going to just go start a restaurant because they're a heart surgeon, And so like that's where we need to get to as ADHD entrepreneurs, is to be able to get to a place where we can like, let these ideas kind of matriculate, like sit on for a little bit, take a clarity break, see if it pops back in. If it keeps pinging your soul, it's probably something you need to take action on. But you don't need to take action on it the first time it hits your brain, because then first thing I ask when something hits my brain, is that real? I'm always like, is that real? I don't know if that's real or not. And then I always say, oh, God or the universe will like, they'll show me another sign if it's meant to be. And so, and then, if you go deep into, if you're a spiritual person, prayer is a really good thing, man. And then you'll start to see signs of things that you're supposed to do. Like you'll see, like, somebody might mention something to you. I had a call the other day where like, I was thinking about something totally unannounced, unprovoked. A friend of mine calls me and starts talking about that thing. I'm like, well, that was eerie. And so like, I'm like, maybe I should explore that a little bit. I don't know. So
I
yeah,
like that.
it's art. There's art and a science to it,
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you about the Who Not How. You've read that book, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I skimmed through it. I mean, yeah, I definitely
But
realized. I realized about that book before I even knew that there was a book. Once and again, now that I know the whole Gino story and how he's entwined with strategic coach, it all makes sense. Because when I found out about this integrator, I just thought, oh shit, I just need an integrator for everything. And then I'm like, I actually am like, oh, I just need a who, so that way they can do the how. And then someone told me there was a book, and I was like, well, that makes sense. Like, no duh. Like, I mean, like now that I have this figured out, like, but yes, that's a great book. Everybody needs ADHD visionaries always need lots of who's.
so how are you vetting your Who's?
Mm. Yes, that's a good one. So first and foremost, right? Are they in a value alignment with me? Like, are we like speaking the same language? Are we on the same page? Do we care about the same things in life? I'm super mission driven, values driven. I'm all about love and kindness and empathy and grace and forgiveness and, not trying to like, have revenge, and I'm not trying to be mean, and I'm not trying to like bully my way to get anywhere. And so, those core values, that you set for yourself in your business or in your life, this goes, and if I would have had this information before we pick spouses, we'd probably be all better off in life. But But it's the same thing, right? You know, you pick your partner in life. Hopefully, it's on a core value alignment. You might not know that's called that then, but you usually align with somebody that's, you know, got similar values to you, right? Same thing in business. So that's the first thing. Like if they don't pass that test, there's really no other talking about the skill set, because, you know, there's the two things: there's the right people and there's the right, you know, skill set or seat. And then that's the hardest part, though, is making sure that they're going to be the right person, making sure too that like they complement your skill sets, because you don't really need another version of you. So, you know, again, me and you would probably not be the best to work together. You know, like to start a business together. Like just, if it was just me and you. Now,
Right.
could we collaborate and bring our teams together and do something really cool for the world? Absolutely. But like if it was me and you 20 years ago, like we'd probably be dead. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong, Armando.
Oh, you're not wrong. I 100%. You know, you don't. Hindsight is 2020, right? Like you read these books, and all of a sudden things illuminate you. I'll get real personal, and I've shared this story only twice in the last 2 months, but I was able to save my marriage based on a book called The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. Have you read this?
No, I've not read that book.
It's an amazing book. And basically, it talks about, you know, in business as in relationships, if you're not creating trust in who you are in the relation, in trust in your relationships, then you're always going to have relationships that are flawed and that are not going to work, right? Like Warren Buffett can buy and sell a business very quickly because people trust him, because he does and says what he says he's going to do, right? Like, and he's transparent, and there's no, you know, all of that stuff. So, to make a long story short, I grew up in the military, and I was, you know, I always moved around every 3 years, so I was plucked, and it was painful for me, but that was my life. My wife, she lives here, she never moved. And so when we would get into it, I'd be like, you know, life is too short for this. I'm out, right? Like I'm out. I don't care. I'm out.
You're a
You know what I
flighter.
mean?
You're a
Yeah.
flighter. Yeah.
Right. And I would just always do that, right? And then I would come back and say sorry and, oh no, don't worry about it. Well, little did I know I was creating this environment of distrust with her, whether
Mm.
I'm in or I'm out,
Yeah,
right?
abandonment.
And
We're on abandonment too. You know, like, and
yeah,
she needs to feel security.
and I'm like, why are you not giving me this feminine energy? You're nice to everybody, but you're not nice to me. You're always down my throat, blah 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 blah. And like I read this book, and I'm like, holy shit, I've created this environment, right? And like that realization, that illumination, like I came back, and we were like close to drawing up the papers and like, yo, move out, and you know what I mean, like that. And I was just like, look, I don't know if this is past that point or not, but I just want to let you know that I am aware that this is my fault. Yeah, I mean, it takes two to tango, but I wasn't doing a tit for tat thing. I wasn't like, I'm going to say I'm owning up to this so that you can say you're owning up.
Yeah.
I took 100% ownership, right? Like extreme ownership of it. And I go, you know, I created this environment, and for that, I'm sorry. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And whether we can make amends and whether we can move forward from this point, you know, I'd like to, and you know, but I understand that you might already be checked out, and she was checked out for fucking at least a year to, you know,
Oh, probably even
probably
longer than that.
more, right? And she's just like,
Yeah.
we're going through the motions, and like, and people just and I read another book called Leadership and Self Deception, where, you know, we are in an echo chamber at times, because the cliff notes of this book is, are you in the box or outside the box? When you're inside the box, you're treating somebody like they're an object. When you're outside the box, you're treating them like they're a person with dreams and fears and all of that. And so when we're in the box, we're constantly justifying our story for why we're the
Mm.
victim, right? And
Mm.
then, and it was constantly me going, we're already divorced because of you and you and you. And
Yeah.
I was never pointing the finger at myself, you know?
Mm.
And so, you know, all that to say that the illumination of, you know, continuing to personally develop as a person and understanding who you are. And to your point, right? Forgiving yourself, right? Like I had to forgive myself for that in order to move forward, right? Because like if I can't forgive myself, then how can I, how could I expect her to forgive me?
Well, and you want it's and there's the other crazy part. It's actually not even your fault. You were born into an environment that created that behavior, and that's how you knew how to deal with those situations, was just kind of bounce. And like it
Yeah.
wasn't, and so like, I was at the VCon last year, Gary V's conference, and he did this whole big thing, and like, fuck your parents, like, fuck your grandparents, right? Like, he was saying it in a way like they're the ones that kind of screwed us up, but we don't have to be like that forever. We just have to now be aware, so
Sure.
that we can figure out how we can change the way we want to behave, so then that way we can, be in more peaceful relationships. Not that they did anything wrong. They weren't aware. They weren't aware, you know what I mean? Like, and they might not still be aware, and it's okay. Like, hey, mom and dad, I love you. Like, it's all good. I made a couple tweaks in my life, and not your fault either. Like, you guys were just doing what you had to do. But these behaviors, this is the way I treat. Then I started to treat my wife like that, and she wasn't used to that, and she probably didn't grow up in a way that was received. But I guarantee you, she grew up in other ways, and she's got some of her own issues that she's dealing with that were passed down from her parents in a different way, different things. And I've been through that same exact story. It was not the exact, obviously, but very similar. I read a book called "What Do Radical Husbands Do?"
Hmm.
or "What Radical Husbands Do." That book changed my life and saved my relationship with Brittany, because 2 years ago, she might have been a year and a half ago, I couldn't handle it no more. Like, I was just like, man. And then I realized, I'm like, man, I got to just pour into it. I got to pour in harder. When I want to run, I got to pour in harder. You know what? Like, that's got to be the new trigger. Like, when Ben wants to run somewhere or escape or think like, grass is greener on the other side, why not just use that same activator skill and go deeper inside and like deeper in there and figure out like how I can actually, you know, be more aware of how I'm treating her, right? And like, being present for her, right? And like, at least giving her an hour of like what I call it podcast time with your wife, where you're actually just asking her how her day went and you're just letting her talk.
I like that podcast
You're,
time. Yeah.
you're asking like 30-second question and you're letting her just go. And yeah, half the time she's just going, let her go. Oh, what else? How did that make you feel, babe? Oh yeah. Ooh, tell me more. If you just do that for an hour a day, folks, guys out there, if you just do that for an hour a day and you set your freaking phone down at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or whenever you want to do it, after the kids go to bed, hey, how was your day? Tell me more about that. Wow. And just be super present. That'll solve like 80% of your other problems. The other 20% solved by being passionate about what she loves and trying to really love what she loves. And most of the time, if you have kids, it's the kids. If you guys don't have kids, then it's either the dog or it's her job or it's like her friends or it's something. It's her
Yeah.
whatever it is, just love what she loves, right? And also burn the ships. If you burn the ships and you realize this is it, like it's just me and her on an island forever, there are no other options, even though there's 3 billion other chicks out there. There ain't no other options. And if you start to like tell yourself that, it really sure does make it easier to go forward in life, because it's like you have to. It's like you ride or die. And when you treat her like that and you treat her like the queen that she is, she will inherently not like, what it's like when you over treat someone so good. Like there's that thing of reciprocity. Like they can't help but like be good back to you. Like you can't help it. Like it's I don't care how screwed up you are. You cannot help be awesome, or at least start to be more aware and like. And then it's a two-way street, and that's why I think men were. This is probably a hot take, especially in today's culture, but I feel like the male has that responsibility because the way that we're uniquely wired, we have to go first. We have to be the first one to say, "Enough's enough. I'm going all in," and then she follows. Not in this
Yeah.
bad way. It's just the way that we're wired, right? That's the way God made us.
I 100% agree with that. Benny, if somebody wants to work with you and find you, how can they find you and work with you?
BennyFisher.com. And you can find, podcasts is on there. I just started doing some one-on-one coaching. I don't think I'm going to do a lot of it because it's not very scalable time-wise. And then also I found that most people don't really want to do the work anyway. And that really bugs me. And so, that's why I like the if I can, impact 50 people, and I know all 50 aren't doing it, but at least I don't feel as bad, but if it's like one-on-one, we put all this time together and you're investing money and stuff like that, and you don't end up doing it, and I don't want to be responsible for that. So I got a couple one-on-one guys though, guys that I've known for a while. They want to learn how to live life by design and create more freedom in their life, so that way they can be a better husband, be a better dad, be a better leader, and have another passion, right? Other than the thing that they're doing. Because most of us are usually doing what we're doing because we mindlessly got stuck into it because one idea led us down a rabbit hole. And next thing you know, here's where we're at. And then we start making money. Then we have a family. We got bills to pay. Well, we can't stop doing that thing anymore because that would be too risky. And so we just keep doing it for like ever because our parents did the same thing forever. Even though we're entrepreneur, I'm running the same company for 40 years. That's no different than dad being in the military for 40 years or 20 years or whatever. So, yeah, BennyFisher.com is a short answer for that. But, yeah.
Hey, man, I appreciate your insight. I follow you. Love what you're doing. Love the energy. Love the perspective. Love the mindset. Keep doing what you're doing. And if you guys are looking for some direction, follow Benny Fisher, man. It's good motivational, uplifting stuff. And, keep at it. Keep growing. And we'll see you next time. And that was Spaghetti on the Wall, ladies and gentlemen, brought to you by Leduc Entertainment for all of your digital project needs, podcasting, organic, social. We got you. Keep watching Spaghetti on the Wall, and we'll see y'all next time.